Hey y'all, it's Scott. Not sure how to start this thing, so I'll just start it. About a week ago, I was sitting on my couch and I felt a stabbing pain in the back of my right eye. And I started to realize that my vision in my left eye was going. I got very scared, called my mom, called my wife, and asked for somebody to come help with the kids because I needed to figure out how to get myself to a hospital. And I was scrambling to figure out what you're supposed to do in an emergency. But what I realized very quickly was no one has to tell you what to do. People just step up. People just help. So we rushed over to the emergency room, and we are very lucky to live in a part of the United States that has a robust university medical system, University of Iowa. And we are very lucky that they have a life helicopter that was able to get us to the emergency room at the neuro stroke unit within 20 minutes. And I have no doubt that the speed in which those people moved saved my life. We found that due to high blood pressure, I had lesions on the brain, and I had a great deal of blood on my brain. And I don't mean to be graphic, but I think if I had heard somebody tell me this 6 months to a year ago, I may have listened. But when your doctor tells you to take your high blood pressure medicine, they mean it. I had an insane amount of blood on my brain, which not only caused a lot of pain and pressure, but also caused vision loss to a point to where my peripheral vision is basically shot, and it feels like I'm in a fog, and I see ripples in my vision. The best way I can describe it is the scene from Donnie Darko when the rabbit is moving through time. That's what I see in my vision. And my brain is not at full capacity. And for those who know me, I value my brain a lot. And it is frustrating to feel it moving at a snail's pace. I actually was staring at a clock on the wall, and somebody asked me, "Why are you staring at that clock?" And I had to laugh at the absurdity of my answer. And that is that I didn't know how to read it. It is a very humbling experience, my friends, when you forget to know how to read a clock. But I do believe everything my doctors are telling me, all the research is telling me that this will get better. It just takes a little bit of time for the brain to soak up all that blood. And once it does that, I should see a full recovery. But I want to tell all of you, don't let your health fall by the wayside. Don't ignore running to the pharmacy. Don't ignore taking that pill in the morning, because it will come back and it'll haunt you. And I gotta tell you, there is nothing more scary than watching the lights go out. I had a microangiogram in my brain to figure out where all the lesions were coming, and they had to use Catalyst to read the graph. And one of the side effects of the Catalyst is vision loss. And I can tell you, I was sitting on my hospital bed talking to my mom, and I could see the lights going out. And immediately I started thinking about, have I seen my kids' faces for the last time? No one should have to have that fear. So I want you all to take a little bit of extra time to hold your families. Take a little bit extra time to listen to what your doctor says. And step up just a little bit more to help everyone around you. Because I gotta tell you, I got to see the greatest of us all at that hospital. The nurses, Maddie, Noah, Sarah, John, more of you. You all were so professional, so kind, so understanding, and so willing to step up and help. Thank you. And thank you to Blake and the team for getting our show out this week and just rolling with it. And thank you to our fans who reached out and were willing to help in any way they could. And I saw all of you reach out, offering kindness, just kindness. And that means a lot. You all did an amazing job. And it's something to feel loved. I would just ask that we don't have to wait for a crisis to feel that love, because it is powerful. Well, this is a week for celebrating. While I was on that hospital bed, we crossed over 400,000 views and listens. So thank you so very much. We're well on our way to 500,000. And please be sure to like and subscribe. And do me a favor. If you can, reach out to a medical professional and just thank them. Thank them for all they do. And if you wouldn't mind writing a letter to the ICU team at the University of Iowa, I wouldn't mind it either. Thanks so much. Thanks for stepping up. And thanks for making this a little easier. I'll see y'all beyond the rim.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Break House.
Welcome back to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. As I'm sure our listeners have noticed, this is not Scott hosting this week, and usually we have some smartass remark about where our absent hosts are or what they may be doing this week. But this week, as anyone who follows our social media, we put out earlier that one of our hosts has had a bit of a health issue and is spending some time doing some recovery and resting right now, and that would be Scott. So we do appreciate you bearing with us. And one of the things just to comment on, and we put this in the social media posts that we put out on our Facebook and our Twitter, but we've commented many, many times about the Babylon 5 fandom and community and how it lacks the toxic elements of a lot of the other fandoms out there. And since this came out, both from those who follow Scott or those who follow our personal social medias and even our podcast one, the number of fans of the show that have reached out both publicly, privately to us to check on how we're doing, to offer their thoughts and support, even to our fellow content creators and other podcast hosts from other shows who have reached out to us and offered anything that we need to help us right now to make sure that we keep going with our show. So to all of you in the community and in the fandom for Babylon 5, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being the incredible people that you are and continuing to reaffirm our belief in what this fandom is. So I am Blake, and with me tonight is
Emily,
Nicole,
Justin, Kevin,
and Jessi.
And if you hear any weird noises with Kevin this evening, he apparently has Jiminy Cricket with him in his recording space, so just ignore any odd noises from Kevin. We swear it is not because he is a lizard person, which was Jessi's conspiracy last week, although maybe not. We'll leave that up to you to determine.
His dinner escaped. That's what we're hearing.
Hey, we can't mess with Scott this week, so we had to pick someone, and Kevin just fell right naturally into the position for that. So we do have a review this week. We actually have 2 5-star reviews, but I'm going to go with this one. And it is, if you are new to the show or remember searching for what insane hour the next episode would air, This is the Babylon 5 podcast you're searching for. I love the different takes a mixed group of newbies and fans of old brings. It feels like the early days talking with fans, perhaps even more welcoming to newbies. From the ridiculous to the profound, every episode is more than worth listening to. You'll find yourself wanting to join the conversation. I am saving Beyond the Rim sections for my next rewatch, but I'm confident they're just as good. This review came to us via iTunes from Quit Deleting the Whole Thing.
That's awesome.
I love that they think we are both ridiculous and profound.
Yes.
The best part is we can do it in the same episode.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the kind words. I don't know if every episode is worth listening to.
Yes,
but
it is.
I do appreciate the kind words.
We're entertaining. Every episode is worth listening to.
And if you're really wanting entertainment, just find the ones that reference angel wings and Touched by a Vorlon. They're priceless.
Yeah.
We are
my
a
favorite.
fucking delight. That's right.
Gray 17's greatest hits.
So for this week's synopsis, I believe, Nicole, you have the synopsis for us.
Yes. So this week on Darkness Ascending, Lennier goes rogue and almost kills himself to get the evidence that they need about the cargo ship attacks. Lise comes to Babylon 5 and tries to put Garibaldi in his place with his drinking. And then Jakar might finally get his wish to get freaky with Lita and get his telepaths.
There are pleasure thresholds discussed in this episode.
Oh, yes.
So for those who have not joined our show before, or those who need a reminding, the way this usually works is we start off with getting our first impressions from everybody and then jump into a discussion about the show. And then we will throw all of our newbies out. And, well, since Mike's not here either, Kevin and I are going to go answer your questions and predictions or just outright make fun of you, whichever the case may be, in Beyond the Rim. So let's go ahead and start with our newbies' first impressions, and let's go with Jessi.
No. No.
Wow.
Sorry. Yeah, so I've watched it. There's a start. It's giving me, I don't know, deja vu vibes, like now facing another Centauri war. And something is weird and I don't like it because the hair.
Wando?
Yeah, we were 10 minutes into the show and I fucking lost my shit already.
For all those at home on the audio podcast, it's Jessi putting her bull moose hands up behind her head. The guy with the hair.
Holy shit. Sorry, guys. Londo legit does not seem to have any idea of what's going on. So it kind of creeped me out when Delin ran up to him and hugged him. And she's like, we might not get another chance to do this. So it's definitely odd. Don't love the Lita stuff again. I don't know. I like Guy go in waves where I'm like, oh, good. We don't have to see the telepaths. And now they're doing crazy, creepy pleasure threshold stuff. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. So, yeah.
Justin.
I guess out of the last few episodes, this probably has to be one of the better ones for me. I like the callback to The Gathering. There's been several times, maybe even more than several, that we've referenced that exact same scene between Lita and Jakar. And now we get to finally see that kind of rehashed with Lita is like, remember when you wanted to fuck? Is that offer still open? Type situation. And it's curious to see, you can tell that Jakar has changed over the past few years, but maybe not as much as we thought. He may still have a little bit of that mustache twirling left in him at the end of the day. I was thinking about this the couple times I did watch the episode about whether or not Lita was actually in Garibaldi's room, and we can probably talk about that when we get to it. Yeah, Londo getting the cold shoulder from everybody. This was a situation where that man has no idea the shitstorm that's about to fall onto him. And I really felt for him because you can tell even when he got the call from his ambassador, something's going on, but he's not even really sure. He is completely in the dark about all of this. So it was an episode that made me kind of really feel bad for him. And then Garibaldi, Lise kicked his ass around a little bit, but not as much as she needed to, I guess. And that was kind of one question I was going to ask is, did Jerry Doyle ever really talk about what these scenes were like for him filming them at all? Or did anybody else in the cast talk about these scenes where he's really struggling with the drinking again and stuff like that? Because we all know he sadly passed away due to complications from alcoholism, but I don't know if that was ever really addressed by Jerry Doyle or anyone else in the cast about how cringeworthy those scenes are to watch or maybe film.
I've got a little bit for this episode, but nothing that really goes directly to what you're talking about, Justin.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, he talks more about his relationship with Lise than he does about the alcohol. I'm not personally aware. How about you, Blake?
Yeah, I'm not really either. And the main person that would comment on it, because the writer for all these is JMS.
Yeah.
And the one thing JMS has proven time and again is, for the most part, he's a pretty honorable guy when it comes to talking about the negatives of the cast, particularly those who have passed. I mean, Michael O'Hare, hell, he kept that secret for damn near 25 years before he
Right.
finally talked to a convention about what the actual circumstances were. And he's addressed that there were conflicts with Doyle. He's addressed that there were times where he tried to intervene and get Doyle help and it got thrown back in his face. I mean, he's made those kind of comments, as have other cast members, regarding their experiences on set with him, but nothing that directly got into like the filming or the mindset or anything like that.
Yeah,
Right.
and the reason that he came out with the information about Michael O'Hare is because Michael O'Hare directly asked him to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that you would see JMS really address that very much. So unless something were to come from another cast member, which I think it probably would have by now if it was going to, I don't know that we'll get much more than what we have now.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
even that Phoenix Comic-Con panel they didn't bring it up.
it
And
just
Jerry
makes
Doyle was
those
sitting right
scenes
next to him.
it just makes those scenes really difficult to watch. I mean, that was the worst part about the whole thing. But that's all for me.
Emily.
I didn't hate it because it was actually a pretty decent episode. It was nice to have them highlight just how much better of a tactician and politician Delenn is than Sheridan, since too many of the episodes have been diminishing her skills, and this one just reaffirmed that she's a much bigger badass than he. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more from the Lita and Jakar situation, because that would have something different. Bring back one of those nice little nightgowns that we've had in previous episodes. The Lise and Garibaldi situation I thought was really interesting, so we can get more into that one later. But overall, it was a good episode. I wasn't vastly disappointed.
I'm just going to point out, as Ryan told us, she is the one that had an orgasm and radicalized a group of hippies. I'm not sure what would happen if she got it freaky with a Narn.
I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever know. Do we ever know? There's my question. Do we ever get to see Lita and Jakar get on?
And on that note, Nicole.
Oh boy.
Our resident shipper.
Yeah. So I thought this episode was cool because literally everybody was in it. All of the characters were in it. We saw everyone from Veer to Lennier to the main characters to Franklin to, Lise even. I really enjoyed that everybody was in this episode in some way, shape, or form. So I thought that was really cool. I kind of laughed when Sheridan and Delenn were in bed arguing at the end. I laughed thinking Emily was going to hate that. Sorry, Emily, but I did. It's all I think of now. But I really thought this was a good episode. There was a lot going on. And I feel like even though there was kind of three plots going on, essentially, usually we have a plot and a subplot, but I feel like there was three main stories in this one, and all of them complemented each other nicely, and I thought it really moved the story along. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm interested to kind of see where it goes with the whole Centauri thing. I'm interested to see where it goes with the Centauri thing because Londo really is in the dark, and that one guy was saying, oh, it's not us, it's Narns using our ships, but really, how trustworthy is that? And I'm also really curious about the whole dream sequence at the beginning, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I just thought there was a lot going on in this episode, but it didn't feel clunky or cluttered. I thought it played off each other really nicely and everything complemented each other and moved the story along very good.
And Kevin?
I like this episode. There's a lot of good elements in this. I'm not a particular fan of this storyline with Garibaldi. It is not easy to watch even without the knowledge of the actor's troubles, but the stuff with Lennier especially I think is a really strong part of this episode. And I did like the Delenn and Sheridan stuff in this episode too, which I'd like to get into, but It is interesting. This is only the second scene in the entire series up until this point that Jakar and Lita have been in a scene, just the two of them. And so we're all right to think directly about the gathering because that was the first time we saw that. And these two actors really enjoyed working with each other, but they, up until this point, hardly got a chance to. But some of the best stuff about Andreas Katsoulis comes from Pat Tallman talking about how great he was to work with. So I'll share a little bit of that. But I think this is a great episode. Maybe not top of the list for the season, but solid. Nothing negative about it.
Are you okay there, Jessi?
All I can hear is a fucking cricket.
I'm so sorry. It's terrible. I know.
Am I? Yeah, I'm hearing it.
Cricket.
I actually didn't hear it at all on that one.
Kevin's cricket is a shapeshifter too. God damn it! All right,
I'm gonna turn my microphone sideways. I don't know if that's gonna do shit.
It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
I just love that you're absolutely driving Jessi batshit crazy on this.
You are.
Well, there's a plus.
We'll just wait.
Remember when you said you had never managed to piss off Jessi, Kevin?
Yeah, well,
Tonight
it's not really me
night.
pissing her off, but she can be pissed if she wants.
The side quest for Kevin. We're moving on.
Well, just wait until you find all the other crickets I released in your house when I was there. So.
Yeah, I knew it.
Hey, he said he got rid of them from his house. He never said how.
Yeah, I didn't say where I sent them. I Pied Pipered that shit right up to you, Kevin.
Piper. We don't Pied Piper anything, by the way.
You just went to a pet store, like, give me 100 crickets.
Let
Let them all loose. Just
why not?
Damn.
Fuck that guy. I've been friends with him long enough.
Fuck that guy.
I'm kind of with Kevin.
This will be funny as shit. Watch.
Damn it.
Oh, okay, back on track. So I don't dislike this episode either. I don't think it's one of the great ones, but I do like this one. I particularly like where it fits in the story, and that's about all I'm going to say with that. Is I just like how it fits in with the overall season 5 arc. And the callbacks, the callback to the gathering, pulling those little pieces in. We get to see Lennier back in this one, actually doing something and contributing by trying to get the information that they need to figure out who's doing these attacks. But it just overall, I like this episode. It's got almost all of the main cast in it. I don't think it had Lockley in it. I don't remember seeing Lockley in this one for the main cast for 5, but it's got our core cast in it.
Or Zach either, but that's about it.
No, it had Zach in it. He was in the dream sequence at the beginning.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He was, dead in the corner, but by God, he was there. He acted the hell out of being dead in the corner. So again, I think this is a good, solid episode for season 5. And I have to agree. I know there was a lot of criticism about last week being a filler episode, especially back when the show came out. But to me, that episode sets this up. And I agree with some of what JMS said. There was kind of this attitude getting there that the payoff was great, but anything setting up the payoff was filler. And he got so annoyed with that. And I love that part of the discussion last week about it being more of a filler, that it really does connect into the story and helps move and set some of the pieces up. So let's go ahead and jump into our discussion. Where do we want to start? We've got a few different areas and directions we can go. So who wants to jump in? All right, so let's go ahead and just start right where the episode does, with Garibaldi having one hell of a dream about how things turn out on Babylon 5. And let's go to Nicole.
Okay, so the dream sequence was crazy. I thought it was really interesting because I feel like it displayed Garibaldi having an inner struggle, like with himself and the alcohol. I thought it was very symbolic. He was kind of like, what's going on here? And, oh, don't worry about it. Like, it was like him versus him. And I feel like Garibaldi with the gun that's killing everyone was the Garibaldi with the alcohol. And then the other Garibaldi is normal Garibaldi, right? And I thought it was really, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess symbolic, but also like interesting that they kind of did it that way, because he probably feels like that's probably accurate, like how he feels. Like he doesn't want to be drinking. He feels like I feel like he's trapped in between two worlds. And I feel like that was what that displayed, right? Now, the Lita thing, when he woke up from the dream and Lita was there with her eyes all crazy, is that real? I guess is my question. I feel like that was legit. Like, I feel like that was actually Lita messing with him. maybe not physically in the room, but she doesn't need to be in the room to get into your mind. But then he woke up again, and I was like, wait, what the hell just happened? I had to rewind and watch that part. So I thought it was really interesting. There's two big factors with this dream sequence: the Garibaldi versus Garibaldi, drunk Garibaldi versus regular Garibaldi, and then the dream, like the Lita thing. I don't know. At first, I was like, that had to be a dream. But then I'm like, I don't know, man, with the way Lita's been and with what's been going on with her and with the powers that she has, I could totally see it being true. So I can't wait to find out in a billion years what the truth is on that.
Are you making that officially one of your questions and predictions, Nicole?
Yeah.
Emily.
So the whole coworkers and friends and stuff being killed, and then like Garibaldi with a giant gun comes out from hiding. I was actually wondering if that was a response to guilt he's still feeling about the whole Bester situation and being manipulated and betraying people, and if he's concerned about betraying his friends again. And I was like, okay, so that seems plausible or whatever. And then the Lita bit hits, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck is happening now? Like, is he projecting some weird feelings about her into his dream? Is she actually like, oh, we're gonna just start popping into people's dreams randomly just because I can to see what I can do? So I'm really confused by that, and I do want to know if she was actually doing that or if that's just Garibaldi being fucking paranoid because she has more powers than Bester had, and Bester fucked with him.
I feel like we might be about to get some tinfoil or some red string out. Justin.
I don't know. I don't know if there's red string involved, but maybe a little bit of tinfoil. 157% agree with Emily. I didn't really think that this had much to do with alcohol and everything to do with the betrayal of everyone that he holds dear that happened during the entire Bester episode and his fears and insecurities about not being in control of himself and afraid that he'll do it again and he'll let everybody down. Because that's where they even had like written in blood on the walls and the floors, like, where were you? You know, why didn't you help? You know, like all the messages that were inscrawled on there are all the insecurities that he has. And in terms of Lita, 100% she was there. I don't know if she was there in person or if she was just there mentally, but she even said that she has been testing herself. And this is only the first of a couple times in this episode where she's made allusions to the fact that she's been testing herself and pushing her boundaries and pushing her capabilities. So I 100% think that she was at least in his mind, if not actually physically in his room. So I do think it was real.
Nicole.
I just kind of wanted to add that, like, what they were saying about the whole, like, he doesn't want to let everyone down and he has the guilt. I definitely think that also is true, but I think it's brought on by the drinking. Like, the drinking is what's going to get him to let them down and get them to not be there. Like, that's what's causing it. And I think that the dream was kind of like, this is what's going to happen if you keep it up and let the alcohol control you. And then later when he said, he didn't want to be controlled anymore, it kind of made a little bit more sense. The dream did. So I definitely think that you guys are right with that, but I do think the alcohol is the reason why he would let them down again, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. That's a really good point.
So, and the way it always goes, so JMS actually did get asked about some of these questions in the dream sequence back on the Usenets when this all came out. And in typical JMS fashion, his response was basically, it was ambiguous. It could have been metaphorical or it could have been literal. And he proceeded to basically give a narrative for both of those options on what it could be and never did actually answer the question of what this dream was and what did it mean, other than it could have been completely metaphorical and warnings about his alcoholism and Lita being a manifestation of his distrust of telepaths, or it could have totally been, completely literal with Lita just absolutely fucking.
What a tease he is.
Good old JMS and his answers, right? Kevin, I think you also have some production thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so this episode is directed by Janet Greek, and she's done quite a few of the best episodes of the series, and she really was very interested in doing this dream sequence scene. So the way they filmed it was they had two handhelds, and were constantly moving to film from both sides, and then it was edited together in a very jumbled format on purpose to make the dream sequence just seem kind of that way. And I think it's a really cool way of doing the scene, because it really adds a different element to it that may show whatever this is meant to symbolize, whether, and it's really, up to the viewer to decide. It does show Garibaldi's inner turmoil, regardless of what the underlying reason for it is.
I'm just wondering if one of these days someone's going to have a nice, pleasant dream of fields and bunny rabbits and cuddly things on Babylon 5, and not be the dreams of death, destruction, and everything else that seems to follow along with it on this show.
Come on, Blake. What's the fun in that?
Yeah, right. Well, if you want that kind of dream sequence, you can watch a couple episodes of the original series of Star Trek. And I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because they weren't great episodes, but you can if you want.
Talking about some episodes of a series that don't necessarily hold up to scrutiny many years later.
No.
Some of those really don't. But then again, neither did some of the early TNG episodes. Ooh.
Oh, all of those are perfect and could never wait, never.
Except the one that nobody wants to discuss ever. Yeah.
Well, there's a few, but one in particular.
Are we talking dream sequences or the entire first season?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, maybe we can just say that the entire first season is a dream sequence. And
we're just going to Dallas that damn first season.
Yes, please, God.
Picard gets out of the shower and goes, "What the fuck was that?" Nicole.
Well, speaking of showers, call me petty, but I don't care how much I missed my man. When I came in the room, and if I was Elise and I saw how sweaty and icky he was, I'd have been like, "Nah, homie, go take a shower before I get in bed with you." Like, sorry about it.
Okay, so does that wrap up our discussion on dream sequences? So before we get into the Centauri and spying, how about we jump to Lita having conversations with and basically propositioning G'Kar this time? Nicole, you're shaking your head.
So I could not help but laugh when she walked out of the room and she was like, "By the way, I don't have a pleasure threshold." His face, he was like, "Whoa." I could not help laugh. Like, you could tell the gears were turning in his brain, and he's like, "Finally, I'm gonna hit it." So I was just cracking up. The whole scene, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of serious." And then I was like, "Oh," and then I just could not stop laughing. I was like, his reaction was so funny, and she knew it. She knew what he wanted, and she was toying with him, and I was just dying laughing. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, the whole scene was good, but that part really, really cracked me.
Yeah, I will say I loved the way she just kind of threw that over her shoulder. Like, you're never gonna get it, so why not just throw it out there and just drive you a little bit wild with that one. Justin.
I mean, honestly, it's thirst trapping in Babylon 5 at its greatest. Who was it? I think Blake had made the comment that this is really the second time in the entire series that they have done a scene one-on-one together. And it really makes me really wish they would have done more, because their on-screen chemistry is just fantastic. Like, they bounce off of each other really well. And even like the masked innocence in G'Kar's voice, where I'm a better man now. I'm not the same man that I was back 5 years ago, where if he were the same man 5 years ago, he probably would have jumped all over that. But he's like, he feels like he has to be in a decent position. And then even when she was taunting and toying with him a little bit, and he finally had to let out that sigh of, "Oh, I survived that." It was actually just a fantastic scene to watch those two together, because it was really entertaining. And the fact that they brought back a very problematic, fun scene from the very first pilot episode was just brilliant. That's one of JMS's brilliances with this episode for me, was reliving that and finally, okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. And you know what? It may not be the way that you wanted, but you will have access to my DNA and other DNA. And it's going to be a win-win situation, I think, for everybody. Until we see how the Alliance reacts to the Narns having telepaths, and then maybe that'll cause a little bit of friction, but who knows?
I think you're spot on there, Justin, with the chemistry in the scene. And part of that, I think, really is the versatility of Andreas Katsoulis also, because he can have these just huge screen-sealing moments with some of his speeches and his just physical presence in a scene, especially if you put him and Peter next to each other.
Mm-hmm.
But then he can also have these moments where it's the lighter, funnier interactions and play really well with someone like Pat Tallman also. Not saying she's not a great actress, but it's different interactions, it's different roles. And the fact that he can do both of those with such versatility and nail it every time is just fantastic. Kevin.
So Pat Tallman talked about this, that usually, or at least sometimes, with the more experienced actors, just in general to work with, a lot of them they'll give you tips and, no, you're not playing this right. You got to play it this way because of this reason. And she went out of her way to say how great Andreas was to work with, because he didn't do that. He trusted her enough to say, you do this the way you see it, and we're just going to roll with it. And she was really happy with the end result of the scene, and she really credited how giving and how wonderful he was to work with at every opportunity that she got, because that's what it was always like, she said to
Emily.
I thought the whole no pleasure threshold line was really interesting, because we've seen how much pain Jakar could take. So that's like it's hinting at she doesn't have one. We know he has a high pain threshold, so I feel like that's really interesting. And then it just kind of fizzles out. And honestly, I think on some level, it just needs to get smutty at some point.
I bet I'm really wanting to go through the thought process you have here of connecting Jakar's pain tolerance with Lita's pleasure thresholds and where you see these two things coming together.
Well, she has no pleasure threshold, and we know he has a high pain tolerance. So then what's his pleasure threshold? If we've seen the pain one, like, how is it a higher threshold? Like, I have questions. And will magenta underwear be involved?
Magenta.
Of course.
See, this is what happens, because sometimes I get bored with the regular storyline, and then I'm like, can we just spice it up a little bit? But then I remember it's like 90s sci-fi, so it's going to be limited. But if anyone has any interesting fanfic about these two.
Oh, if you ever, you'll have to wait till the end of the series, but Emily, you would rather enjoy going out and searching Babylon 5 fanfic. I'm pretty sure you would enjoy some of the B5 smut that is out there.
Okay, well, if anyone has copies they want to send us for free,
It's the internet. It's all free. Justin.
There are certain things I don't want to Google or have in my Google history, okay?
Why you use safe browsing mode, Emily? It exists for a reason.
Also, we're not allowed to Google yet, so don't tempt us.
I qualified it with when the series is over.
I know, but I have so much smut to read between now and then.
We'll find you some more B5 smut, and we'll do a special episode with Emily reading B5 smut.
Sounds good.
Send us your B5 smut, and we'll have Emily do reviews. Justin, you want the B5
please.
Smut too, don't you?
No,
yeah,
no.
He's just thinking about all of it. He's like,
no, okay.
You broke Justin. God damn it.
This is actually the second time that we've seen Lita talk about how much she pushes herself and trying to find her new abilities and see how far she can go, because she discovered she doesn't have a pleasure threshold. That's the scene I think is missing out of this particular. I'll stop being smutty and dirty because that's Emily's arena of expertise. But I'm also disappointed that we didn't have more rope talk out of this particular area.
Rope.
Can I just comment on how Garibaldi does not look as good in his robe as Jakar does?
Agreed.
Well, let's be honest. There's not a lot of dudes that can pull off a robe quite like Jakar can.
That's 100% the truth.
That's one good-looking man in a robe.
But
I said robe.
Did we hear robe?
Jakar and Ric Flair, two people who can pull off robes quite nice.
Can we talk about Lise in a robe, please? Oh.
Well, Jessi has some comments first, I think.
No, I just wanted to remind you that you just asked the viewers to send you porn.
I asked him to send it to so technically Scott is the one that gets the Gray 17 email. So Scott has something to look forward to when he comes back, is an inbox full of Babylon 5 smut.
Scott's got enough on his plate right now that
and I'm sure some of it will cheer him up. Folks, to really cheer him up, if it is Talia and Lita related or Ivanova related, particularly all three of them in one smut, Just highlight that with urgent, and that will just go right to the top of the inbox for him.
Yeah, if you throw in Lockley too, he might explode.
Let's
Visual,
save that till he's
audio.
better. We'll save the
Ask your
Lockley till he's feeling
doctor if
better.
you're healthy enough for B5 smut. Oh, okay.
My.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Good
So
job,
let's-
Kevin.
And you almost said that with like that medical commercial voice of "Ask your doctor today."
That's
Wait,
where I was
right.
going. That's right.
Hold on. What kind of fucking friends though are we that we want to cheer Scott up with smut and porn?
Hey, that's a
What's
good
wrong
We're
with
friend.
us?
great friends.
We're great
We're
friends.
great
Damn
friends.
good ones. That's
Good
right.
ones. Mm-hmm.
If we thought we could get away with it, we would send him the lube and the booze to go with it in the ICU, but I'm pretty sure that would get us in trouble.
And have a discussion about
sneak it in.
4-hour and then have a discussion about 4-hour boners on top of like Babylon 5 smut and everything else.
I'm not going to be responsible for killing Scott, so
Just
fuck
give him
off,
something to
guys.
think about while he's getting the sponge baths, you know? Never hurt. And we can't
I
even
hope
say
he's
he's
vegan.
editing this because I'm the one that's going to have to edit this. So we'll just leave it all in for him to be surprised later.
Oh,
I hope
yeah.
his nurse is 6'4" and hairy.
Helga, come, I give you sponge bath, yes.
She like manhandles him a little bit, smacks him around.
Scott, this
Wow.
is all love. I promise.
We
It's
are in fact
all
concerned
love.
about his health and do want him to get
Yes,
better.
Right,
We're
yes.
all
sure.
damaged people who deal with that by making fun of
Exactly.
Yeah.
those we care about.
And for any of our listeners who are psychiatrists, please don't email us. We know we're all fucked up. We got it. We're good.
But
We do
even
this
like
in-
Jakar says, without humor, there's no point in living life. So,
Right.
Yes.
I also
This
go
is
to
what we
therapy.
do instead of therapy.
Yeah.
yes,
So
we
how
get
about-
on and shit talk Babylon 5.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think we've talked about B5 smut and pleasure thresholds. We've talked about dream sequences. So do we want to do Centauri or do we want to jump to Sheridan and Lynn?
Did other stuff happen in this episode?
I do have some Centauri comments and thoughts.
Well, let's
All right,
follow up
Kags, do it.
smut with Nicole and Centauri because this always goes safe spaces.
Oh, yes. So I
Yeah.
just think it's kind of funny that Londo is literally completely out of the loop. I think it kind of sucks for him that he's out of the loop, but also like the one Centauri asshole guy from back home who like messaged him or whatever and was saying, "Oh, it's the Narn who have our ships and we're ready to fight." I feel like he was full of shit. I don't know. I'm interested to see if that was true or if it really was the Centauri doing it. So I'm definitely interested to see what happens there. But I really wanted to comment on the Veer and Londo scenes because I really enjoyed those. Veer is just so funny. Like, I just love him so much. I would love to hug Veer. Just what a gem. And just the way that he handles Londo in a way, it's just so funny. Like, oh, you have the day free. Do what you want. You know, I'm sure you can find something to do. But my favorite sequence of that was when Londo said, "No one actually really trusts anyone." And I was like, ooh, he's still a little bit bitter there. And he's still a little bit of that dark, injured person underneath. So that was kind of funny, I thought, and ironic, considering the fact that it seems like he trusts certain people, but clearly I feel like it just reminded us of who Londo is. He never really trusts anybody. So that was kind of fun. But I just really enjoyed the whole Veer and Londo dynamic. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. When Delenn hugged Londo, I'm like, are they going to blame Londo? Are they going to shun him? Like, what's going to happen with the dynamic with the people that are kind of the core group, right? So I had a lot of thoughts about what was going to happen next with this whole situation, but I don't foresee it going good for Londo. It was just really, I don't know, from the start to finish, I really liked the Londo Veer stuff. And then at the end, when he noticed that people were like when Franklin and Garibaldi were kind of talking and looking at Londo, I could just see the gears in his head turning like, oh shit, what's going on? So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I know that's not like the whole fighting or attacking the ships and stuff, but I do think that that was a significant part of the episode was the Veer Londo dynamic and then just the kind of things that transpire along the way.
Justin.
Yeah, like I said during my first reactions, this poor man has no idea the shit that's about to fall on him. And to me, it's irony at its finest because you have a person who he is going to catch a lot of holy hell, and all of the goodwill that he has been trying to rebuild over the past half season or more is gone. It's going to be absolutely gone. He's going to be blamed for everything, and none of it is actually, this time, none of it is his fault. And he's still going to completely, like, everything that happened during the Shadow War. Yes, there were a lot of people on this podcast who were very condemning of him, and rightfully so, because he did reap what he sowed. Like, a lot of the shit that he took during the Shadow War was his fault. None of this time is his fault, and he is still going to catch all the hell and blame for it because he's the prime minister. How could he not know? And but also you see how much they have gone through and kept him in the dark because they don't want everybody to know that it was the Keepers or whatever they're called is actually running things down there in Centauri Prime. And this whole minister that's like, oh, that is completely fake newsing him about, oh, well, it's they're going to manufacture evidence and stuff like that. And towards the end of the episode, especially with what Nicole you were saying about Garibaldi talking to Franklin, then Franklin like death stares Londo, it's going to get really rough for him. And it's one of those where he now is, to me, going to become more of a sympathetic.
Kevin.
It's weird to me because they seem to have been very convinced that Londo had nothing to do with it, and now there seems to be hushed tones and weird looks at Londo, and it's like, well, what's that about? Because you were so convinced he had nothing to do with it, and the viewers know he doesn't. But that's a strange dynamic. I thought the Centauri minister or whoever that's still in Centauri Prime that he spoke to in this episode was very manipulative in the way that he did that, because not only does he set up, okay, whatever evidence comes out is going to be made up garbage, but he also insulated Jakar from whatever that was going to be, because he believed, rightfully so, would be my guess, that if he had not insulated Jakar or had directly implicated Jakar, Londo probably wouldn't have believed it. So that was very manipulative, I feel like, to insulate Jakar that way. It's clearly been engineered for a reason, and we'll have to find out what this is all about later on when it comes out. But they certainly have every angle of it well designed from at least to this point.
Emily.
I'm really concerned about how effective they have been about doing stuff behind Londo's back. And it makes me question how interested he actually is in the position and power he holds. Like, how much is he actively doing stuff? I mean, he's on B5. He's not even back on his home planet. So if you're not even physically there, it seems like it's so much easier for things to happen behind the scenes that you're not going to be aware of, just because, you're not there, and the contact you have with people is going to be different. And I think he's put himself in a really vulnerable position by being away. And I'm interested to see how that's going to play out, because it doesn't seem like it will be anything good that will come from it.
Justin.
Emily, you raised actually a really good point that I didn't think about before. Yeah, because Londo always prided himself on all of his whisperers and stuff like that within the court that he would always have. And he was always a man who knew everything that was going on, regardless if he was directly involved or not. And then now he's completely in the dark. So, like, did all of his resources get neutralized one way or another, whether physically or psychologically or whatever? But also, the disinterest is an interesting comment that I think is pretty telling, because yeah, maybe he want power anymore? And I don't think he does. Like, he doesn't want the power anymore. So yeah, he may have just escaped to Babylon 5 because that's his happy place. That's where he wants to be. He doesn't want to be prime minister. He doesn't want to be emperor. He just wants to be on Babylon 5 and carry on his life as normal. And so yeah, he could very well just ignore everything else that's going on around him until it comes back and bite him in the ass like it's about to do. So yeah, that's a really good point.
All right. Anything else on our Centauri plot line, or anyone want to talk about Lennier and his little secret mission and going off in a flyer all on his own? Emily.
So on whatever that day was when they got visited by dead people and Morden came to talk to him about a betrayal, I was like, okay, is this what qualifies as a betrayal because he didn't follow direct orders, or is something larger going to happen? And I did find it interesting that he didn't follow orders. And Dylan's response was kind of telling, because I know she's upset with him because you were supposed to follow orders. But at the same time, had he followed orders, he wouldn't have gotten the information that they had. And that seemed like it was difficult for him to make that choice, but he knew it was the choice that needed to be made, kind of. And it is interesting to have Lennier be so much more like independent, because when he first shows up, he's very much there to like be her assistant or whatever you want to call it, and follow her and do things for her. And now he's like more on his own. And I think that's been a really interesting change for his character.
Justin.
I had that exact same question written down, Emily. Was this the big betrayal that we were forecasted? I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think he did what he had to do to complete the mission. So I don't really think this was the betrayal that we were promised or whatever. But, the fact that, I've got questions about Centauri. I mean, what are those? Are they fighters? Are they corvettes? Are they capital ships? But the fact that he was able to latch on and suck out their oxygen supply without anybody noticing or being any the wiser was kind of strange to me. But he went and, yeah, he Top Gunned it and he completed the mission. So to me, that's kind of what that all was to me.
Nicole?
So I think with this situation, as upset as Dylan was that he didn't follow orders, I think she kind of expected it, because she even said Lennier's the kind of person who will keep going and keep fighting till the end. And I almost feel like she knew that he would do that, like once it was recalled, because just the way that she was talking, saying that like he's one of those people that would be perfect. Like when her and Sheridan were arguing about why he would have been perfect for this mission, she was like, he won't stop, he won't quit, he won't sleep, he won't rest, blah, blah, blah. So I almost feel like she expected him to do that in a way, or wasn't surprised that he didn't follow orders. And he did that because she said that's who he is. That's how he is. Yeah, I think she was upset he didn't follow orders, but also like she called it. She knew that he wasn't going to quit until he got what was needed, and he would find a way to make it happen. So, and clearly he did that. So very creative and very lucky on many ways, that he was able to survive that. But yeah, I feel like she kind of knew that he was going to go there and go rogue.
Justin.
I don't actually think that she knew that he was going to go rogue and do this. This will be, I think, the third or fourth time on this episode alone that I have to agree with Emily on something, because if Sheridan would not have thrown a monkey wrench into the entire damn thing by recalling them in the first place once he found out what was going on, his little tachyon little detector thing, they would have been able to track it down and take care of it by themselves. But Sheridan had to go all crazy and get angry about everything and recall them back, and threw a big problem into their whole mission, that then Lennier had no choice but to violate direct orders and go off on his own. So, yeah, I'm on the Emily bandwagon. I blame Sheridan.
I love it.
Nicole?
I don't blame Sheridan, but I guess maybe I want to clarify. I don't think she knew he would do it, but I don't think she was surprised that he did. Like she once they were recalled, I think she was like, oh, well, that makes sense that he did that. You know what I mean?
I give you that.
Yeah, because I think that she wasn't surprised that he did that because just his personality and the tenacity that he has. But I don't think that she knew, like, oh, well, don't worry, he'll do that. I just think that she wasn't surprised. And yeah, I think that if it could have all been avoided if they didn't recall them. And I think that they should have at least had a discussion first before Sheridan recalled them.
So real quick, Blake.
Okay.
Poor Kevin there in the background. Honestly, it just tells me kill the quicket, kill the quicket, kill the quicket.
Joke's on him. It's not actually a cricket. It's one of those little pieces that you put in there that makes cricket sounds.
Oh,
I was going to say, Kevin, have you received a card from anybody on the podcast recently? Any packages from any of us? Because this is the exact kind of asshole thing we would do.
I was just there today. Be quiet.
Considering that Justin was still here, he would be the prime suspect.
Sorry to give away your secrets.
Justin, you can private message us where you place it, and we'll
laugh with you.
There's
Oh,
no
he
way
knows
it's
where
not
it
in the
is.
window well, because
Right.
right here is a window, and it's in the damn window well.
For all of you listening on the audio podcast, Kevin is now tearing up his room with a flashlight.
God fucking damn it.
Do not edit that out.
It stopped for like 2 seconds, like, yeah, fuck you.
Yep.
Kill the cricket, kill the cricket, kill the
Cricket's like,
cricket.
got 2 little fingers up.
I was just
Fuck
thinking,
you,
like,
Kevin.
if I shine the biggest goddamn light in that window well, I wonder if it would think it was daylight and not say a damn thing, but I doubt it.
So Emily's been patiently waiting to jump in while Kevin's tried to kill the cricket. So
yeah,
Emily.
sorry. If I spray the shit out of it with bug spray, it's not going to do anything right now.
Yeah, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say because I was really entertained by the whole cricket situation, but I'm pretty sure it was something about blaming Sheridan for being a trash leader and undermining Delenn and just being an all-around dick.
Got it. So we can just cut in audio from
up.
one of the umpteen previous episodes where you have made that exact same unbased statement. Cool. Splice that in.
Actually, their discussion about it when he was trying to be all hard ass and tell Delenn what she did was wrong, and she's like, "I know,
you're right." He's like, "Wait, what?"
It just like,
and she still owned his
all
ass.
of
She
it
still
out
owned
of it,
his
and
ass.
he was just like, "Damn it."
He was like, I was gonna be mad at you, and then he's like, and I come in here and now I feel like I gotta say sorry about myself.
Exactly. And I loved that. I was like, see, she is that good because she knows what she's doing, and he still is not up to her level. And I thought it was freaking.
And she knows how to shut him down in a heartbeat. And that's brilliant too, because that's what I was gonna say, Jessi, is he was ready. He wanted to scream and yell and fight. And then when she goes, "Yeah, you know what? You're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry." And he's like, No, you can't get out that easy. I want to fight this out. And that was actually a really entertaining scene because it just shows that, you know what? Delenn is always 2 steps ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be something she may not be overtly doing it, but she still knows exactly what it does to bring John to her side. And she's not afraid to use it because look at the benefits she got from it.
Well, and even JMS commented that when you're talking about the Minbari religious caste, they make the Jesuits look like intellectual softies. And that if you're going to get an argument with a member of the religious caste, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Every single time.
He is definitely outmatched with her, and I kind of love it. As long as they're highlighting it, but I don't like it when they try to make her seem less than him.
But he lost the fight before it even began.
Kevin.
So JMS really wanted to bring in some different kinds of conflict this season. And this is one of the ways that he decided to do it is with, a first year marriage type of, conflict, which could just be JMS projecting, but he says, the hardest year of marriage is the first, which I'm not totally sold on that argument, but
it's the fourth. It's the fourth.
So, it is interesting. We've talked about this before, but I think it's important to highlight here that, while Sheridan is a military tactician, he is not a diplomat, and he is especially not a politician. And while he'd be the first one to say that, it's clear anytime that he gets politically or diplomatically outmatched that it's very, very true and that this is all a new arena for him. But as far as Delenn's concerned, she's a master. And I agree with you, Emily. I like when they highlight it and when they don't make it seem like, she is second fiddle to him. She is second fiddle to no one, thankfully. And they highlight that in this and other episodes. But it is interesting that both Mira and Bruce really liked bringing in, and this is one of the episodes that highlights it, some more not not smutty, but some more physicality. You know, the holding hands in this one especially is where that's most prominent. In a new marriage, that kind of thing is fresh and new and more electric, and that's highlighted here, that they wanted to bring that into this portrayal so that it would seem more natural. And while there might be people on the pod that would disagree with me, I think it works very well, and Bruce and Mira certainly thought it did.
All right. Anything else that any of y'all want to bring up? I see Emily pointing. So, Emily?
This might fall under questions and predictions, but when Dylan gave Londo a hug, could she feel anything if they're on the back?
Jesus Christ.
Oh shit!
I'm not
There it goes.
that.
You just watch around the video screen as it rings in with people.
That took me a minute, but oh shit. Okay.
I have to say, I knew exactly where that was going, and I was like, wow, I don't even know if I want to unmute to have this reaction.
Is that
Blake,
a tentacle, or are you
reaction.
just happy to see me?
Oh, no.
On that note,
OMG. Okay.
let's just jump into our questions and predictions, and we're sure as hell not going to start with Emily after that. So let's go for Nicole for questions and predictions.
So, well, I guess the big question is, are they going to go to war with Centauri? Because Garibaldi seems to think so. Is Lise going to get out on time safely and get back to Mars? Is Garibaldi going to quit the drinking? Was Lita really there in the dream? And then what was my other question? I think that's it. Prediction-wise, I think Londo's going to get thrown under the bus for something he didn't do. And he's going to get ostracized and blamed. I think that's all I have.
Jessi?
I want to know about Centauri dicks now. No, I need to know the answer to Emily's question.
I don't know what question you're referring to. I heard no goddamn question.
So, to reiterate for you.
No.
Did she grab them? All of them, or just one of them, or five of them? Five
Did
of
she
the
just
six?
lightly stroke them?
No. What she did is each finger just touched a tip. That's it. Just the tip.
Kevin looks like he might die of secondhand embarrassment.
You can't take us anywhere. You fuckers are why we can't have nice things.
Basically, what the last 25 years with my friend.
Oh my
Justin
God!
has
There we
been
go.
like.
There we go. Blake's bringing out the bottle, and he's the next one in the hospital. Let's go.
It's me. I'm the
There we
problem.
go. He's done. Not even a glass. Just chug it.
Oh God. Okay, so I have none.
Okay. Justin.
Just the tip.
I don't know. Just the tips.
Justin.
I don't know how I follow that shit up.
Oh fuck.
God damn it, Jessi.
It's always my fault.
Love you, boo. Well, no, you started it. You started
Emily started it. Let's be very clear.
Anywho, all right.
Okay.
Questions and predictions. Whoosah. All right, let's do this. So I think a lot of my questions and predictions have probably already been addressed, but I'll just run through them again real quick. Is this the grand betrayal by Lennier? I don't think so, but the question still stands. How are the Narn going to go about getting the telepath DNA? Is there going to be some direct mating as Jakar, and are Lita and Jakar gonna shag for science? Inquiring minds want to know.
That needs to be our new T-shirt.
I can make one on Cricket. It'll be fine. Cricket. So what's gonna happen to Londo and Veer from here? Because like I said, they're gonna catch a shitstorm that they're not expecting or ready for. Are they gonna get arrested? Are they gonna get expelled from Babylon 5? And then I guess the only prediction that I have is it's gonna ruin, like I said earlier, all of Londo's goodwill that he's been trying to rebuild from the Shadow War is now gonna be gone. And I can kind of understand now why he kind of has a little bit of animosity towards maybe Sheridan and Delenn and why he had them locked up in a dungeon during War Without End. If that is still the future that comes to pass, maybe that's why he's still in a really shitty attitude because of what's about to happen. So that's all I've got for today's episode, sir.
Okay, Emily. Oh God.
I love how you sound so resigned. Like I'm going to ask more inappropriate questions.
Please do.
Luckily for you, that was basically one of two. And I already asked the other one earlier. But I do have legitimate questions. One is the same as Justin's. Morden told Lennier he was going to betray the Rangers. The whole not following orders didn't feel like a betrayal. So is there something bigger looming? And how long is it going to take Londo to figure out there's basically a parallel government running while he's on B5 that he's unaware of, that's making decisions, doing things without his knowledge?
A deep state.
Something like that. And are Garibaldi and Lise going to split up? Because she seemed pretty upset over him drinking again, and his little tirade about he's doing it for himself or whatever bullshit that was. I didn't fully understand all of it, but it is what it is. But she doesn't seem like she wants to stick around and deal with much of that. So will she stay with him? And then there was a question she brought up about her company, and she wanted his help trying to figure something out. So is there still some shady stuff going on with the corporation she inherited from her dead husband that might come back to bite all of them in the ass somehow? And are we done with the telepath war? Like, is that over? Was the whole little B5 it? Or will there be more in the future? Because that felt like a real fucking letdown. And that's all.
That wraps up our questions and predictions from our newbies for the evening. Let's check in with Jessi for our conspiracy theory section of this evening, because I'm sure she has to have one, and I'm really hoping it doesn't involve Centauri dicks.
I wish it did, though. Okay, so just a reminder that Epstein didn't kill himself, and Mickey Mouse was a serial killer. You're all welcome.
And birds aren't real.
Wait, there's
And-
actually a movie coming out where a guy wears like a Mickey Mouse mask and murders a bunch of people. I saw the preview for it the other day and laughed hysterically.
Maybe not such a conspiracy, is it?
Thank you for joining us this week on another episode of Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. Remember to check out all of our social media accounts and like, follow, and subscribe to us. Particularly if you are watching on YouTube, make sure to like us and follow us there, because the YouTube algorithm seems to fucking hate us right now. And after some of the discussion of this episode, I think I'm starting to understand why. And if you could, we would also appreciate a 5-star review. I said 5 stars, 5 of anything else, and we just don't need to go there. But give us a 5-star review, preferably on Apple or your podcast app of choice, as it does help us out with the show. Plus, we may read your review on air. And even if you think that we completely suck, give us a 5-star review and say that we are completely fantastic at how much we suck. So, again, 5 stars, whether you hate us or not, just give us 5 stars. I am Blake, and with me has been the following group of assholes.
Emily.
I'd like to point out I've done nothing wrong, Nicole.
Justin, I've done a lot of things wrong tonight.
Kevin, and how many assholes we got on this thing anyhow?
Yo.
Yeah.
And don't forget to outro your cricket, Kevin.
Oh, Jessi and Kevin's cricket.
Thank you for listening to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Grey17podcast or youtube.com at Grey17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Grey 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim. If you have not watched past Darkness Ascending or care about spoilers, this is not the section for you. So we are going to go through all of our newbies questions and predictions. Normally we have the four of us first ones on here, but tonight you are stuck with Kevin and I, and we will do our best to answer everything our newbies threw at us and do our best to ignore a few things that our newbies threw at us. So let's jump in, Kevin, and get right into Lita and Jakar. We have several questions around Lita and Jakar. Centering around, do we ever see them get it on, and how will the Narns get the telepath DNA? And again, will there be any Lita and Jakar shagging?
Well, we don't get any Lita and Jakar shagging, but they will have a big mission towards the end of the series together that will take them into the far reaches. But no, you don't ever get any romance between the two, but definitely a lot of respect and camaraderie between the two.
Yeah, because the two leave together. They leave the station and go off on their own because Jakar doesn't want to be the central religious figure, and Lita just wants to get away, and they just kind of...
How will the Narn get the telepath DNA? And that gets back to the shagging part. I'm sure it's just the clinical medical type of
Yes.
DNA transfer, and that's all that's going to be. I think it's interesting that the Narns still really want telepaths. Obviously, it would be enormously helpful to them in certain ways, but it is in the clandestine way, I'd imagine. And with the shadows gone, it's interesting that they seem to be still very interested in it. It's not like I don't get it, but you would think it wouldn't be quite as important now.
I see it as a cultural restoration for them. They're trying to rebuild from the Centauri. They're trying to recenter their society and who they are. And as we know, they had telepaths, right? They had telepaths as part of their society until they were wiped out by the shadows. So I kind of think it's a measure now of the shadows are gone. They're trying to rebuild their society and get back to what they once were. And to do that, they can't just go back before the Centauri. I think they need to go all the way back. And I think bringing telepaths back into their society is a way for them to do that.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. I hadn't thought of it that way.
So let's keep going on the subject of Lita. And was Lita really messing with Garibaldi at the beginning?
Well, we really don't ever get an answer to that I know of. So it's certainly up to interpretation. My read on that is that Lita was not there, not in his head, and that was part of the dream. But that's just my reading of it.
And see, I have the opposite in a way. I don't think Lita was manipulating his dream. I don't think she was manipulating what he was seeing, because let's face it, from Lita's powers, if she was trying to give Garibaldi a wake-up call and get him to stop drinking, she could make him stop drinking through telepathic suggestion. That wouldn't be an issue. So I don't think the dream sequence was put there by Lita, but I could easily see Lita, for lack of a better way of saying it, mind creeping around the station and popping in and out of people's heads just to see what she could do. And particularly with someone she knows like Garibaldi, may have been someone she's like, oh, Garibaldi's having this dream. Let's take a watch. So I don't think it was malicious. I don't think she was messing with Garibaldi, but I do think Lita was definitely in his...
Yeah, I hadn't considered that either. I just saw it as it had to be some sort of malevolent intent, which I don't ascribe to Lita. So...
Well, part of what I'm basing that on is whenever she's used her powers, otherwise she's always had the black eyes, right? The eyes go black. This was the Vorlon white-eyed thing when she was possessed with the Vorlon. So I looked at it as more of the passive, the Vorlon presence, not necessarily a malevolent type force or using of a power.
So moving on to Londo, have Londo's intelligence assets been neutralized? And I think the obvious answer to this is they have to have been in some way, because if he has no knowledge of the fact that it is entirely the Centauri attacking these shipping lines, his intelligence assets must have been compromised. So whether that's by the Drakh directly or other Centauri, but it doesn't seem like he's aware of them being neutralized either, which is kind of scary when you think about it, that the assets of the prime minister having been neutralized really makes him fairly blind to what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some bits and pieces there that I think in the whole Centauri thing could use some fleshing out, maybe a few more questions answered.
So, going along with that, are they going to go to war with the Centauri?
Absolutely. Because they're not going to be able to stop the League. That's the thing, is it's not, or not the League. They're not going to be able to stop the Alliance. No matter how much Sheridan may want to sit there and try to say, we need to figure out what's going on. This can't be right. There's got to be something else happening. You've got the other member races who are just going to want to go absolutely berserk after this, and it is going to lead to a conflict with the Centauri, which is exactly what the Drakh are trying to do, is break up the Alliance.
Right. So moving on to Lennier, was this the big betrayal that was foreshadowed? Or
Yeah,
is there
not even
something bigger looming that Lennier will betray the Rangers?
Yes.
Yeah, much, much bigger. This was extremely small potatoes with something like that. I hesitate. You can't even put them anywhere in the same hemisphere of betrayal.
I honestly, I will say, I don't think our newbies are going to pick up on what's going to happen there until it happens.
Yeah, I would
I
agree.
I do not. I think they're going to be stuck on, oh, he's going to disobey orders. He's going to go do something like this. I don't think it's going to cross their mind that what he's going to do is try to off Sheridan out of jealousy.
Which, really speaks to how far off character that is. And I don't want to belabor the point. All of us have talked about it, but how far off character and how it just does not fit with the writing and the trajectory of the Lennier character. It just does not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So will Lise get away safely?
Yeah.
Yes.
Until they try to kill him later, which leads us to our other question. Is there still shady shit going on within Edgar's company? And we know that's going to come up later as, yes, there is.
Oh, isn't there? Isn't there? Yeah.
Because, while Lise gets away this time, the people that are trying to pull the shady shit send assassins after her and Garibaldi in a few episodes.
Yeah, I gotta say, the telepath storyline really does not interest me greatly, and certainly in this season, I'm completely over it. But the Mars stuff with the Edgar's company, all of that I found to be very compelling.
Yeah, I agree. I really love the Edgar storyline and the Mars beat in this. So will Garibaldi and Lise split up?
No.
No. Which this does make a little bit of a sad outcome for Kevin's personal fan fiction. That means no Garibaldi and Lockley's story will be emerging.
Yeah, well, I happen to be an interesting party when it comes to Lockley, so I would have liked to see more of her character in season 5. I feel like she kind of looms large as far as the character being interesting, but we get a lot less of her than I was expecting. When you go do this week to week, it's like, wait, where's Lockley? Oh, she's not in this episode. And she's in half of these, maybe?
Yeah, that's actually what I'm looking up right now, because I actually agree with you there, Kevin. I really like the Lockley character, and I like Tracy Scoggins. According to this, non-credit appearances in season 5, 11.
Yeah, so about
she's
half.
Only in half the season.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I actually like the character of Lockley. I know some of our newbies had some issues there. The other thing I appreciate, Tracy Scoggins is a sci-fi fan. She's a fan of this stuff. And I would have loved to have seen what we could have got if they would have brought her in more and put her in play more in this season with some of these issues and let her really play with the role.
Yeah.
Rather than just having this, background captain that shows up every few episodes and doesn't really get much to play with in this. And you mentioned her dynamic with Garibaldi. The two of them, Garibaldi was actually, Jerry Doyle was brought in to screen test with her. And JMS basically told him, get in her face, try to rile her up. And what it devolved into was the two of them hurling insults at each other. And when they finally looked at Jerry Doyle and asked what he thought, he said, she's the least likely person to sleep with me, but she's the best captain. And that was his recommendation for Tracy to take the role for Lockley. And I will say, as much as I love JMS, as much as I love his writing, I really think that was wasted in season 5.
Yeah. And, one of her other prominent roles is her Cat Grant in Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, and I felt like she was really wasted in that series, which is why, she didn't stick around, very long in the series, but she was really relegated to little more than a sex kitten, except there was a couple episodes where they were trying to be like, hey, she is more than her character, but I don't feel like Tracy Scoggins really got an opportunity to, really branch out in that series. And that's why, while she's only in 11 episodes of one season of this show, I felt like she got to do a lot more than, that other prominent role.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that one.
Will Garibaldi's drinking get worse, or will he stop?
I think we're right about at the apex of his drinking. It does stop. He gets slapped around and it ends.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly if Lise had a lot to do with that or not. I'd like to think she did, but apparently the actress that played Lise, who I would have to look up her name, please
The
hold.
actress that played Lise is Denise
Gentili, yeah. So apparently it was her idea to kind of get in his face a little bit in that scene in his quarters after his shower, because she'd just be like, look, he took off for 6 months, he barely called, we didn't really talk, I get here and he's been drinking, and it was apparently her idea to get in his face. And I think that was a really great scene, and good choice on the part of the writing staff and Herb to write that in.
Mm-hmm. Well, and looking ahead with the drinking, so next week's episode, Sheridan basically tells him, we need you to help coordinate for this blockade with the White Stars to be ready to go, and he agrees to take it on. And then it's an episode after that where he pretty much screws up with the drinking and gets called to the carpet with it.
Yeah. So moving on to Londo and Veer, what will happen to the two of them? Will they be expelled from Babylon 5? Will they be blamed for what's about to go down?
They don't so much get expelled, and I think there's still, even amongst our characters, is this wondering of what happened and how could they be involved with it. And even Londo is surprised at what's going on, and acts genuinely surprised with it until he gets to Centauri Prime and ends up with his keeper and finally figures out exactly what's been going on.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot of conflict for them too, and it would be very hard to understand how Londo, and to a lesser extent Veer, wouldn't have direct knowledge of this whole thing. But you wouldn't think the command staff and the higher ups in the Alliance would believe that he was involved. They seem to have, as I said before, been pretty convinced that he was out of the loop on it, and they kept him out of the loop to try and protect him because they were worried that if he found out what was going on, he'd try and stop it and soon after be killed. I'm pretty sure that was Jakar that was sure of that. So they decide to keep him out of the loop on it. And certainly that was a good choice from the perspective of protecting Londo. But yeah, I mean, Londo is definitely going to go back to Centauri Prime and be like, what the fuck? So moving on to our next question. How long will it take Londo to know there's a shadow government going on back on Centauri Prime? And shouldn't he be paying more attention? I really hesitate to see this as ineptness or laziness on the part of Londo. I think that this conspiracy is deep, and it certainly has been successful in keeping total secrecy outside of whatever the inner circle is of the conspiracy. So I don't hold Londo to a lot of blame for this. I mean, he probably should be back in Centauri Prime. That would be the only argument that I would find a lot of credence in. But he knows that he's going to be shackled to Centauri Prime for the rest of his life as soon as the Regent dies. So he's looking for some measure of normalcy before he takes over the throne. And so it's not hard to understand why he wants to stay on Babylon 5. These are his friends. He feels useful here and likes being on Babylon 5. And certainly we don't want Peter out of the series. So that is why he has, stayed on Babylon 5 for most of the season. But I again reiterate that I think this conspiracy is deep and very good at hiding, because it's managed to keep, every member world in the dark about who's doing it, and, including, most of the population of Centauri Prime.
Well, I think as far as Londo's concerned too, is he still thinks it's a conspiracy within his own government. And that once he becomes emperor, I think he believes he can root it out and get it taken care of once the regent's out of the way, and he can finally get into those pieces that the regent is keeping secret.
Right.
I don't think he realizes the involvement of the Drock. In fact, I'd bet money at this point that he's not aware of the Drock's involvement,
right,
and how that's actually playing into things, despite the warnings that has tried to be there.
Right. Because that attack that happened on Centauri Prime, he seemed like he was completely in the dark about what was behind any of that and perplexed by the whole thing. So moving on to our last question, is the telepath war over, or will there be more in the future? There's not a ton, as we've talked about before, of telepath stuff left. All of it seems to really be around, Lita trying to carry on Byron's work. But we never do get the telepath war, and that's, a possibility of, future writing if we do end up with a reboot or a continuation or other animation or whatever. But
I actually think the telepath war would be a fantastic animated story.
I think so too.
I think they could do a lot with another animated story around the telepath war.
And you've still got Pat Tallman to do it, so give her some work.
Well, and I always think it'd be interesting if you get into that, you could pull the actress back in and bring Talia back into that too.
Sure.
You could have a lot of fun with that.
Although it doesn't seem like she is active in Hollywood any longer. In fact, I'm pretty sure she isn't. But I would love for there to be some way to pull Claudia into that too.
So I think that wraps up our questions. So let's move over to our newbies predictions now. And it starts off with, I think Lita was in Garibaldi's mind and also represents his inner conflict. It's possible. JMS kind of hinted at that, or answered and not answered, in the way that he does.
Yeah, as we said in the main show, there's really two different schools of thought here. It's either that it represents Garibaldi's inner conflict about his alcohol and his descent back into that, or it has to do with this next prediction that the dream represents Garibaldi's guilt over the Sheridan capture situation and Bester's manipulation. Also, it could be his fears and insecurities that it could happen again, or that he let it happen the first time. Those are really the two areas that most fans have brought up about this, and it's definitely open to interpretation. But I happen to, knowing JMS as I think I do a little bit, I think this has more to do with the alcohol than it does with the Sheridan capture situation. But I'd be really interested to hear what you think.
I think in a way it does have to do with that, but not directly as a result of his actions. I think it's the fallout from somebody who was manipulated, who had his mind messed with, who was forced into doing things that, from the way they described it, is he knew what he was doing, but he couldn't stop himself from doing them. So it's like being aware of your actions, but not in control of them. And
he says that
messed with him.
Yeah, he says that during the episode that it was something that he can have control over because he had lost his control with that whole situation. So to me, from what you're saying and what my current thought process is, it seems like both are completely intertwined, and it's all of it.
Yeah. It's not necessarily the act of the betrayal itself. It's the whole circumstance. It's everything.
Yeah. Because, clearly the alcohol is the result of, the guilt over the Sheridan capture. and being manipulated by Bester. And then if the dream is a result of the drinking, then everything is intertwined.
Because I mean, this would be an extreme form of PTSD at this point, and look how people cope and deal with that, aside from medical means, and you can see it.
Absolutely. So the next prediction has to do with the Centauri conflict, and I don't remember which cast member it was, but said that it's not going to go well for Londo. He'll be thrown under the bus, and it's not going to go well, and Londo's going to bear the brunt of it. Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't go well, certainly, but it isn't necessarily Londo who bears the brunt from the aspect of he's not blamed for the whole war.
He's not blamed for it, but he throws himself under the bus for it.
Yes, he does. He absolutely does. So yes, absolutely.
Because when he's there with Sheridan and they have that conversation right before he's about to go to his coronation, and he looks at him and goes, I'm walking alone, you can go. And, he's like, I have to do this on my own now. And he's got the realization of what has happened and what the reality of the situation is. He takes the fall for it because he doesn't have any other choice.
Right. Because otherwise, he would be admitting that he was blind to it, which is almost worse because it would suggest that he's inept.
Well, and as we know, the Drock don't just have the Keepers. They don't just have shadow, blasters and little toys. They've got a planet killer. They have bioweapons that the Shadows engineered. And I look at this, the ending for Londo, he sacrifices himself ultimately to save his people, because if he told Sheridan what was going on, if he told them what the situation was, Centauri Prime is gone.
Yeah.
So that leads us to, this will ruin all of Londo's goodwill that he was trying to rebuild for Centauri. And that now I can understand why Londo imprisoned Sheridan and Delenn.
Yeah. I mean, it does definitely ruin all the goodwill that Londo's been trying to gain for Centauri, which is a terrible shame because he really had made some inroads, and it was pretty clear that, Sheridan and Delenn and Jakar felt that he was an important part of the alliance, and they had, if not totally forgiven him, they had at least done their best to put it behind them and move on. And I feel like Londo did too, but Londo, especially in season 5, is not a bad guy, but he is a victim of circumstance, and he is still driven by his desire that Centauri thrive as much as possible, and he'll do anything to see that happen.
Well, and let's be clear, it's circumstances of his own devising. His actions led to the circumstances Centauri is in now.
Absolutely, that's true. But indirectly.
I mean,
yes.
He set this course in motion.
Yes.
Now, the second part of this about understanding why Londo imprisoned Sheridan and Delenn, I think our cast member who asked us missed the tell on this, though. He's the one, Londo is who released them from captivity and got them to safety.
Yep.
It was the influence of the Drock who made him capture them.
Right.
I don't think they've picked up on there is a duality with Londo coming.
So yeah, I mean, he sacrifices himself for his people, and then he does it again for Sheridan and Delenn and the Centauri people again. Yeah, I mean, it's, there's no doubt that, Centauri is going to be, in better hands with Veer, but we're not there yet.
Not there yet. We're getting there. All right. Anything else you want to add, Kevin, beyond what our newbies brought up or what we've discussed with our questions and predictions?
I can't think of anything. I think, this was one of the most robust lists of questions and predictions that we've had in quite some time. I think it was an interesting conversation.
It really was. So I don't have anything to add either. This has been a great conversation for the episode and for Beyond the Rim tonight. So hopefully we will have Scott and Mike back with us soon to join us for more of these Beyond the Rim discussions. Again, thank you to all of the fan community and everyone who has reached out and offered support and words of encouragement through the past few days with us as we have kind of addressed this little bit of a seismic shift that we've had within our own crew and with our production. And thank you for just being the awesome people that you all are. So again, I have been Blake, and with me has been
Kevin and the Cricket.
And we look forward to next week's discussion of And All My Dreams Torn Asunder. Until then, you can find us on all of our favorite social media channels and on your podcasting app of choice or on YouTube. So make sure to give us a like, listen, follow, 5-star review. We will beg nicely. We will beg however you would like us to.